Good morning, Rabbi.
We are learning Mishnah's Gittin, Parakeh, Chapter 5, Mishna Test. We actually began it, but we will just quickly read from the beginning because we'll need it in order to be able to understand the next half. And before we start the Mishnayos, today's Mishnah is sponsored by the Garland children, Lezecha Nishmas, in memory of their uncle, Chaim Gabriel Ben Atogita. The Shamash have an aliyah.
Amen.
Ben Moshe Nachum.
Thank you. Chaim Gabriel and Moshe Nachum. Thank you. Okay. So just to quickly start, let me just read through the beginning again. Mash'elas isha lachaverta chashuda ala shvius. A woman can lend her friend who is suspected of preparing food and eating food that is actually forbidding the Shemitah year because the time for beer had arrived. Beer was not done, so that makes the produce forbidden. And this is a person that is suspected of transgressing that. Nonetheless, you can lend her nafa ukvara v'rechayim v'tanur, a sifter, a sieve, a mill, or an oven. But she cannot sort or grind with her. So to give her the utensils to prepare this kind of food that is usher to eat, you can do. However, to actually help her directly prepare the food, that you cannot. Next, Eishes chaver mash'elis la'eishes ama'aretz. The wife of a person who is careful and carefully observes the laws of Tumah and the laws of taking Meiser, tithing, she can be mash'elis, she can lend these things we just listed before, la'eishes ama'aretz, to the wife of an ama'aretz, where there's two possible problems. There's one problem with the fact that perhaps Meiser has not been taken off of this food, and therefore it's usher to eat. And then there's also going to be an issue with the fact that because an Amaretz is not careful with the laws of Tumah, so therefore that's going to make a problem also. So the Mishnah says you can lend her, Isha's Chaver Mash'elis Leishas Amaretz. The wife of the Chaver can lend the wife of the Amaretz, Nafa Ukavara, the sift and the sieve. And not only that, she could actually sort, grind, and sift together with her. Here, she could be more directly involved, which we explained is because of the fact that since we're dealing with demai, which is the grain of an amaretz, which is a rabbinic, it's a rabbinic prohibition to eat the grain that comes from an amaretz because perhaps it wasn't tithed, but we do really know that the majority of them do tithe. We have created this law of Tumai as a stringency because of the minority who don't. And at the end of the day, if we're only dealing with Tumai, to say that she can't directly help her, she could. Okay, so we have a difference between when the question is using the fruits of Shemitah that are forbidden or using Tumai. Avo mishetata lamayim lesiga ima. However, once she adds the water and makes it into a dough, then she cannot touch it with her. She cannot help her anymore, meaning to knead it. We're not allowed to support those who are committing a sin. And the law is that before challah, basically the point is when the water is added and mixed into the flour, the resulting dough is subject to challah. And because we have challah in this dough, you're not allowed to make this dough impure. And the problem is, since she's the wife of an Aretz, we suspect her of being impure, and therefore, when she actually works with the dough, she's going to be making it impure. And if you help her with the actual kneading of the dough, you're going to directly be assisting in that, and therefore you cannot do that. Okay, so therefore, what we have to bear in mind now, this is what we did yesterday. For the new part of the Mishnah, we have to bear in mind what we just said in the sense of what we're allowed to do. She is allowed to lend her the utensils to work with the perish shvius or to work with the dough, with the grain that will be made into challah. You will be able, in the case of making the dough, to actually grind and make the flour with her, but you cannot be involved with her when it comes to the actual making of the dough, which is there a problem of making a dough impure, which is a Torah prohibition, similar to the case of helping her with the food that is Shemitah produce that's forbidden to eat. Now, says the Mishnah about everything we just said, the kulan lo amru el mipnei darkei shalom. The only reason they said, the things that we just said, that you're allowed to do are only darkei shalom, only because of ways of peace. It is not that when it's kind of indirect, when you're just giving her the utensils, you're not actually doing work, you're not actually aiding her in her preparation. You're just giving her the things to use. That should have been prohibited also. If we're talking about the issue that we're not allowed to, as the Mishnah says, we're not allowed to support, assist those doing a sin, that would have included even giving her the Caleb. However, in order to promote peace, we don't want different groups of Jews having animosity towards each other. Even though, again, they're not doing what's correct, nonetheless, we therefore said certain things you could do. Nonetheless, even though they said you can lend, and in the case of Demai, you could actually assist her because there's a majority that says there's nothing actually wrong here. But when it comes to directly helping her, such as helping her grind the grain that she's preparing, the Shemitah grain that she's not allowed to eat, or helping her actually make the dough, that kind of direct involvement in what could be a Torah prohibition, that far we didn't go in order to promote peace. Next, which means we give words of encouragement to non-Jews who are working their own land in Eretz Yisrael during Shemitah. Okay, is there anything wrong with a guy working his land during Shemitah? Nothing wrong whatsoever. And therefore, we can strengthen them, which means what are you going to say to them? Be successful, be strong. Okay, since non-Jews are not obligated to keep the laws of Shemitah, we may encourage them while they work in their fields, though we may not help them. Okay, can't help them because they're not going to work the field of Eretz Yisrael. Even if it's not, meaning even if it belongs to the guy, the Jew cannot work on the actual field. Okay, now, Avaloi al Yidei Yisrael. If a Jew is working his field during Shemitah, which is wrong, which is an Aveira, which is a sin, then you can't say, be strong, go for it. No, you can't do that, because that's, again, supporting someone who's actually breaking the laws of the Torah. On the contrary, forget about supporting them. You should be telling them they shouldn't be doing it, if that's possible to do. Next, V'shayel and V'shleiman. And we could also greet a non-Jew, with the word Shalom. Now, the word Shalom is one of the names of Hashem, which is why you cannot say Shalom Aleichem in a bathroom. Okay, but we're allowing you to say Shalom to a guy. And why? And which means you're using Hashem's name to greet him. Why can you do it? Mipnei darkei Shalom, because of ways of peace. So with the two things that we just said, that you can strengthen, you can support the guy working on his land on Shemitah, which you said is nothing wrong, and to go ahead and greet him with the word Shalom, peace, which we don't know, so what's wrong with that? What would be wrong with that? Those two things the Mishnah says are only permissible b'nei darkei shalom, because of ways of peace. If not for that, we would have said don't do it. And the explanation here that happened about him is, if not for the promotion of peace, it would be forbidden to encourage a non-Jew to do work that a Jew may not do. I'm not sure why, to be honest.
Say that again, please.
They bring down the reason it's only permissible because of promoting peace. They bring this down from Rashi. If not for the promotion of peace, it would be forbidden to encourage a non-Jew to do work that a Jew may not do. Not really sure what the problem with that is. Yeah. But that's the explanation of why we need darkei shalom, to tell them, to strengthen him when he's working in his field. Likewise, it would be forbidden to greet a non-Jew with the word shalom, which is the name of God, on his holiday.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because he might then commit the sin of thanking his pagan deity, having received this honor. Great, head of lettuce. The Jew said shalom. He said shalom to me. That's a real honor. And he's going to go thank his God. So therefore, initially, there would be a reason to say, don't do it. But for the sake of peace, however, the rabbis allowed these practices. Have a wonderful day. And Gittin Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi.